Welcome to the Frog Factor podcast. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let's just jump right into it. Kevorian Barnes, TCU starting running back, did not practice on Tuesday. Now, it's Tuesday. There's more practices throughout the week. Sonny Dykes said in his weekly press conference, this is from Steven Johnson on the Fort Worth Star Telegram. Sonny Dykes said they will have a better sense of whether or not Kevorian Barnes can play on Thursday. He did not specify what the injury was. Keep in mind, this will be the last week this season that we don't get injury reports. That's a new thing that the Big 12 is doing starting this year. The SEC, I believe the ACC were already doing it. But for conference games now, starting on Wednesday and through game day Saturday, you have to give daily updates. There will still be some state secrets, right? But they are required to say questionable, probable, give some sort of designation to these players. I think right now, unofficially, Kevorian is in the questionable status. And if I had to venture an educated guess, I'm never going to try to pretend to be someone I'm not. I get information sometimes, but I am not by any means a reporter in the sense that I'm getting inside info on a regular basis. This is just reading the tea leaves, trying to understand the situation the best I can. I think Kevorian will either be out or limited on Saturday, meaning either he won't play or his carries will go down. I don't get the sense that they're going to give him the full workload that he had in the North Carolina game. TCU did not really run the ball well against ACU, or at least not as well as they did against North Carolina. I don't think I'm concerned about that necessarily because the way that game played out, they could basically do whatever they wanted to in the passing game, and I just don't believe they needed to go to that well very often. This will be a different game versus a good opponent in SMU. I didn't get the sense, though, that the team was horrible at blocking. I know Pro Football Focus gave the offensive linemen pretty low grades, but I thought it was a factor as much of just like not really getting in a rhythm offensively in the run game because the passing game was so good you didn't have to consistently give people carries. But whether Barnes is out or limited, it puts into question, what do you do with the running back rotation? Jeremy Payne will obviously get an increased workload. He's been, for all intents and purposes, running back number 2. John Denman has also gotten some opportunities, and he's played in both games. So you're already halfway through burning his red shirt, which tells me they're not really worried about his red shirt. They want him to play as a true freshman. Nate Palmer has sort of been late game guy right now. I think Payne will start. The player that I believe might not be on anybody's radar that I could see getting more opportunities in this game is Trent Battle. He's just a solid player. And I thought he ran the ball with conviction better than anybody in the ACU game with the limited opportunities he had. His stat line wasn't like eye-popping. He had 5 carries. 48 yards. 5 carries, 48 yards. There was one 28-yard run and ended up with 2 touchdowns. Trent's good at getting downhill and getting the yards he can. He is also, though, the reason why I think he will get more opportunities with Kevorian Barnes out, he's good in pass pro. I think this will be a ball game where TCU has to air it out. He's good in pass protection, and he can also catch the ball in the backfield. So can Jeremy Payne. But I just believe the matchup and the things that Trent can do will dictate him being in the game more than you would think going into Saturday. The ball game in itself, I've seen a lot of people already saying it's going to be a shootout because SMU's defense has really struggled. They have a good offense. TCU's defense did not look great against Abilene Christian. I believe this is a ball game where you have to let Josh Hoover air it out, and you're sort of going to live and die on his arm because with the run game limitations you have, and honestly, I think you can get by without Barnes. The player I didn't see an update about, and I guess I should look before I say this definitively. Ben Taylor Whitfield, your starting right tackle, left the game early Saturday with some sort of injury. He was limping around. Quentin Harris is your backup tackle. He's been around for a while, but that's a big deal. You lose a starting offensive lineman before a big game, that's significant. And the reality is, regardless of who's at running back, I feel like if Barnes is out, it'll just be kind of by committee with Payne being the lead dog. If you can block and open up lanes to run through, you'll be fine. If you have issues up front, then that's going to be a problem regardless of who's toting the rock. So in my mind, that combined with the fact that SMU is giving up 319 yards passing per game. Sawyer Robertson carved them up for over 400 yards. He had a really good day throwing the ball around. Now, Baylor got behind, and so they had to do that. But still, he was super effective. Let Josh Hoover sling it, man. Like, this is the type of ball game where they have some weaknesses in the secondary. They're more stout up front. If you can pass protect, there will be opportunities for Josh Hoover and his receiving core to make big plays. And that's going to be key. And yes, on the other side of it, you have to play well defensively. And this is an SMU team. Kevin Jennings, good quarterback. He's turnover prone, but he does exactly what they ask him to do. They run the ball well. I think people hear Rhett Lashley's name and they sort of think like air raid, throw it all over the place, but that's not really who he is. I mean, he's a Gus Malzahn guy. It's a lot of power, heavy run game. So run fits are going to be super important in this ball game. They have a transfer running back from UCLA and TJ Harden, who's already got 5 touchdowns and 253 yards rushing on the season. Jordan Hudson, you remember that name well, not Bill Belichick's girlfriend, former TCU wide receiver Jordan Hudson, who famously transferred to SMU. He's their lead wide receiver. He did not play last week against Missouri State. I saw a reporter from the Dallas Morning News say that he was back in practice today, which leads me to believe he'll play in some capacity on Saturday. SMU's been banged up, but the more that I read about where they're at with injuries and how last week played out, I get the impression that it was, hey, let's see if we can get by with resting a lot of these guys and giving them the opportunity to get healthy. And then they'll be ready for the TCU game on Saturday morning. I said on Monday, this is a big game for this program. And if you're missing Barnes, if you're missing Whitfield, the way to win is going to be throwing the football. Let Jordan Dwyer go make plays. Let Eric McAllister go make plays. Ed Small. Jordan Bailey got banged up on a kickoff return in the ACU game. Let Ed Small go to work. He did a nice job in his absence. I feel like we'll see more of a rotation there moving forward. Joseph Manjack had a good ball game. They did a very good job this offseason of trying to replace the weapons and the production that they had at their disposal. And Josh looks really in control. This will be the biggest test of the season by far. But the first 2 weeks of the year, he is just processing so well, making the right decisions, making decisions quickly, finding his guys, and not getting rushed. Like, also making plays outside of structure, on the run, rolling out of the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield, directing traffic, being able to make something happen in those improv situations, which is not an area that he really excelled at early in his career. That's a big step forward, and that's good news for TCU. I'm not so sure it's going to be a shootout. I need more time to think about it. Now, the last few seasons, it has been, with the exception of 2023 when Preston Stone really couldn't do anything effective. Last year it was 66-42. A couple of years ago it was 42-34 TCU victory. That was in 22. 23, I don't remember the final score, but I feel like TCU scored in the 30s and SMU scored in the high teens. Like it wasn't a day where they were super successful offensively. You have the advantage in the passing game. You have to use it. I know I've talked all offseason about balance and running the ball more effectively. You need to have a threat running the football. But I really think this is a ball game where you have to be able to throw, and that needs to be sort of the base of your offense and the thing that you build off of. And it's a combination of the matchup in front of you and also just the fact that you're down a couple guys potentially. But it's just Tuesday. I think there's a world where maybe they're just making sure he's good to go and he's day to day and they don't want to risk anything. But at least as of Tuesday, Kevorian Barnes not out on the field practicing, and it puts his status in doubt for the Iron Skillet game on Saturday. Switching gears a little bit, I talked about Ed Small a minute ago. He is freshman of the week in the Big 12, Big 12 freshman of the week. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if we have a controversy at the slot position. I've been on the record saying that I feel like when the dust settles, and this is sort of how it's played out so far, Man Jack will be the main guy there, and the three guys on the field to start games and also just in important situations will be Jordan Dwyer, Eric McAllister, Joseph Manjack. That sort of backup rotation slot guy. It was Jordan Bailey in week 1. He had an injury in week 2. Ed Small shows out. And then Major Everhart has been dealing with an injury, hasn't been available. I believe he was in practice today, but not sure what his status is moving forward. It feels to me like at the moment it's a battle between Jordan Bailey and Ed Small. And Ed Small's a guy that they've talked about a lot all offseason as, hey, we love this dude. He just makes plays. In high school, he was one of those guys that was just always open, ran good routes, made solid decisions, all those things. So give him more chances. Like yes, it was ACU, but still, he did not look like a true freshman who was struggling with the big moment at all. He looked confident. He looked calm. He had that great one-handed catch in the end zone. He looked like a player that was ready to go, that knew what his responsibilities were, and was prepared to make plays for this TCU football team. So Big 12 freshman of the week, congratulations to him. And yeah, as a true freshman in week 2, that's significant that he's stepping up and making confident plays like that early on. Another note from Sonny's press conference that I wanted to pass along here. Jordan Bailey and Avery Helm weren't practicing. Kevorian Barnes already talked about. The Avery Helm situation is something to watch. I thought the most concerning thing to me, I ranted about the defense in the postgame show. Didn't think they were completely focused. Thought they gave up way too many easy yards. The thing that concerned me the most was just the secondary. Because even in the first half, when they didn't give up any points, gave up a couple field goal opportunities, ACU couldn't capitalize on them. But even in the first half, when they shut out the Wildcats, there were a number of 50-50 balls, especially on 3rd and long, where they weren't able to come down with a pass breakup or get off the field. And, I mean, it was your starters, right? Like late in the game, I think you saw more of the missed assignments, missed responsibilities as they were rotating guys in and out. But even early in the ball game, there were chances for them to make big plays, and they just couldn't do it. Now, Avery Helm returned to action for the first time in a long time, and he looked uncomfortable, right? Like he looked like a guy that hadn't played football in about a year. Was having trouble tracking the ball. Looked like he got caught out of position with his head turned to the wide receiver. So I don't know if this is because he was injured before the North Carolina game. Didn't play. He got to play last week. I'm not sure if this is load management, saying, hey, you know, we got a guy that's been around the block. He knows how to show up on Saturdays. We're going to give him some time off. But it would lead me to believe that maybe he's not completely healthy, because I think there's a place for, I've said this during the offseason and before that, college football is becoming more like the NFL in a lot of different ways. One of those ways is that they've gone to this, a lot of teams have started going to the system where they're not practicing everybody every day or at full speed every day. They're trying to save guys for Saturdays, save guys for games. And that's just been a new development within the structure. But with Avery Helm, you're talking about a dude that hasn't played competitive football in a long time. Obviously, he did on Saturday, but I mean before that. And I just think he's the type of player that needs every live rep he can get right now, because I think there's a world where he bounces back and becomes a solid option at corner for you, or maybe even a starter on the other side of Channing Canada some point down the line. But it's only going to happen if he's able to get back into that game shape and get his timing and his confidence back. You can't do that being on the sidelines. So I don't know the reason behind that, but if it is like, hey, let's watch how much we're working this guy coming off an ACL injury, I would just really question that approach from the coaching staff. Because we said before, there was a lot of potential with this corner room. Like it felt like on the surface, on paper, there were a number of guys who could contribute, right? Channing Canada made some strides at the end of last year. Javon McIvor made some strides as the year went on last season and started to emerge late in the year. Avery Helm has been a solid player for a number of years and is coming off an injury. Vernon Glover was an exciting young player before his injury, but he's also coming off an injury. Elijah Jackson was a guy that started on a team that played for a national championship at Washington and then dealt with some injuries last year and didn't play as much. But you notice all those guys I'm talking about, there was some sort of caveat there, right? Like it's okay, if McIvor and Canada continue to play like they did at the end of last season, then that's a good combo. If Glover and Helm and Jackson can all come back from their injuries at full strength, then that's helpful too. And then you feel like you have depth. But the problem is, if that doesn't happen, if it doesn't click like that, well, now you have just a bunch of guys back in the secondary who are struggling to make plays. So I hope the light bulb comes on in a big way starting this week. Because yes, SMU is more of a ground and pound team, even though they spread you out. But they still have big play wide receivers. They got skill guys who can get over the top and make plays on this defense. Kevin Jennings is a very capable quarterback, and he's going to take risk, and he's not afraid to air it out. So if you don't have players that are able to make plays on the ball and, track it in the air and either knock it down or turn somebody over, then it could spell doom for your defense in a big way. So we'll see if Helm finds his way to where he needs to be on the field. But I think that's only going to happen if he's able to practice as much as possible. I also found this funny. Sonny took a dig at SMU in his press conference on Tuesday. There were two quotes. Dyke says he was surprised at how much the rivalry didn't matter at SMU when he first took over for the Mustangs. Said it was probably because it was so lopsided before his tenure. He also says he thinks Baylor is TCU's biggest rival based on being one of the few Big 12 protected rivalries. So a few things. First, yeah, Baylor is TCU's biggest rival. It doesn't have anything to do with it being a protected rivalry, even though I'm glad that the Big 12 did that. I wish they would have made that same designation for Texas Tech. Not that I think TCU and Tech are huge rivals, but I just feel like TCU should play Texas Tech every season. It's ridiculous that they're not playing them this year. And there would have been a lot of juice around that game if it happened this season. But anyway, yeah, Baylor is TCU's biggest rival. Also, though, the idea of, it wasn't a big deal until I got here. And there's some truth to that, right? Like it had lost a lot of its luster. It's very funny that it's ending. Not funny, I guess ironic is the better term. That the series is ending for now, as it finally does feel like there's some real juice behind it, right? Like SMU's good. They're a contender. They ate TCU's lunch last year. When Sonny was there, they won a couple of those games. TCU took Sonny from SMU, so SMU fans hate him for that. All those things make for good rivalry content. But I'm not going to lament and rehash this all week long. You know, we all understand what the deal is. Sonny mentioned today, he said, look, there's only 2 teams at the FBS level that are playing 11 Power 4 opponents, and it's us and Baylor. What did TCU and Baylor have in common? They both are playing SMU this year. And it's a game they scheduled against SMU when SMU was still a group of 5 team. So as much as we would love to see huge matchups each and every year, this is sort of the standard practice for everyone across college football. You have one game against a Power 4 opponent, which before SMU joined the ACC, that was North Carolina this year. And then you play your FCS opponent, and you also have a group of 5 opponent on the schedule. That's how everybody does it. Now, TCU could certainly break the mold and say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and do it. We're going to play all 11 Power 4 teams, right? But not everybody's doing that. And they want the extra home game. I think the bigger discussion around the scheduling and where it's going and the future of it is, could we get to a place eventually where we just make that FCS game a preseason game? And I don't think that's happening anytime soon, because I would imagine college coaches would not be open to it, because most years it's a win and it's a, check box in the dub column. But if that could be your preseason game, that you're able to evaluate players, get some young guys involved, make it really cheap for fans to attend, and then you get into the meatier schedule where you play everybody else, and that's your win-loss record, I think there's potential there. But I understand that there would probably be a lot of pushback from college coaches, because they want that win. That win matters as far as like bowl eligibility goes. It matters as far as just kind of padding your resume to a certain extent. It's significant to them in that regard. But I think that would be a compromise. And if that happened, maybe teams would be more open to more high-profile non-conference matchups, because they know, like, okay, I can have a better sense of who my team is before the season starts, right? Game on Saturday. I'll be back on Friday with a preview show, and then we'll have post-game on Saturday. It's my daughter's birthday, so it might be a little later than normal, but I will let you know. Best thing to do is subscribe to the YouTube channel here, Frog Factor Podcast, or follow me on Twitter/X at SimcockSteven. Thank you guys for listening. I'll be back on Friday. Frog Factor Podcast. Have a good day.